Session 4, 24th October 2022. Session 4, 24th October 2022. Quran summarized. The exegesis of Quran summarized by ex-brigadier Mustansar Billah. We continue with Surah Fatiha, the opening surah, and we are on third verse of Surah Fatiha. That is Malike Yawmuddin. That is Malike Yawmuddin. Only Allah, Rabb, the inexorably beneficent, the tremendously merciful, is the master of the day of acquittal, is the master of the day of acquittal, absolutely just retribution and reward based on every individual's performance as demanded by Quran and Sunnah, based on every individual's performance as demanded by Quran and Sunnah. Quran quotes the instance of a modern people at that time who were ahead of other people materially, the people of Samud, but always remained in a mischievous mood. The people of Samud, but always remained in a mischievous mood. They pestered their prophet Saleh, whereas he asked them nothing but to worship one and the only Allah and fear Yawmuddin, the day of acquittal. Then is the case of the people of the people Ad. They were characterized for their know-how to build great majestic mansions with pillars carved of stones. They refuted, pestered, and persecuted Prophet Hud, whereas he just preached monotheism. The Quran highlights the Quran highlights case after case to show that the people who, because of their techniques, wealth, and power, became omnipotent were ironically, invariably, and ruthlessly opposed to truth, the teachings of monotheism and accountability hereafter, and considered their own values superior, and considered their own values superior. One of the kings of Egypt, Pharaoh's most favorite and beloved queen Asiya, converted to monotheism a believer. He warned and threatened her with all the punishments, but no threats or menacing tortures could shake her faith. Eventually, he pegged her too, and a heavy boulder thrown from above, and she died. Not that this was the only misdoing. He killed the male infants of the Israelites on a regular basis for years together. The Egyptian civilization was the most advanced societies of the world at that time. They had built beautiful mansions, palaces, developed an irrigation system sustained by lakes, and well knit major and minor canals, and maintained fruit gardens that stretched for hundreds of miles either side of Nile. And Prophet Lut pleaded with his people to give up sodomy, being gay, which had permeated as second nature of the people. But they made his life so miserable that he had to beseech Allah for rescue. The enormities of the disbelievers against the prophets and the handful believers who just preached monotheism and fear of the inevitable accountability hereafter remained perpetual for thousands of years. Their constant effrontery against the directions of Allah was manifested in hedonism. The constant effrontery of the disbelievers against the directions of Allah was manifested in hedonism. Hedonism, that is a lifestyle devoted to seeking pleasures. That is a lifestyle devoted to seeking pleasures and persecution of the believers. In the midst of last century BC, where almost an invincible force of the disbelievers under Goliath was ready to pounce to annihilate the Muslims, Israelites, Allah in His mercy ordered them to fight in their defense and appointed Prophet David as their leader. As it is well known, Prophet David killed the giant like Goliath, and the disbelievers were routed. So was Prophet Zulkifl ordered to deal with the sociopathy of the disbelievers. He and his followers remained in constant wars, and his sway extended over the entire world from the Atlantic coast to the Sea of Japan. To cut the disbelievers down to size that they don't remain a constant threat, a sword, a sword held over the heads of the believers all the time. Prophet Solomon was directed to adopt a strategy of offensive defense, a strategy of offensive defense, that is jihad against the enemies of Allah. Prophet Moses, as directed by Allah, also ordered his people, Israelites, to fight a powerful people of their time, but they became skeptical, adumbrated failure, and refused to fight less 2 to 3 men. Surah 5 verse 24. فَأَذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ فَقَاتِلًا إِنَّا هَاهُنَا قَاعِدُونَ. Translation: O Moses, both the Israelites said, O Moses, both you and your Rabb go and fight. We aren't moving. We are sticking to this place. Sometimes after the departure of Prophet Moses, Persians attacked the Israelites under Bakht Nasser, collected each and every copy of Torah, ensuring not a single one was left out, and torched them all, apart from the genocide of the Israelites. After a century or so before the advent of Prophet Jesus Isa, when the Israelites had managed to rewrite the volumes of Torah, claiming that Professor Ozair knew them by heart, the Romans attacked them. They too collected the rewritten copies, and once again all these were torched. By the time Prophet Jesus Isa arrived, there were no believers left. He had to begin preaching monotheism ab initio. He therefore exhorted his limited number of disciples to turn the other cheek and avoid fighting, and most important, Seeing the fate of Torah, he asked his disciples to memorize the verses of Bible, strictly forbade their putting in writing, and strictly forbade their putting in writing. No wonder the original Bible wasn't even written. As such, presently there are four versions of Bible selected by the Latter Day Church out of 70 versions, and these are the Matthew's Gospel, Mark's Gospel, Luke's Gospel, and John's Gospel. In none of these four versions, it is interesting that in none of the four versions it has been stated that Jesus was God or the Son of God. Prophet Jesus hadn't mustered enough strength to enable him ensure his safety and that of his disciples. And we know how, when he was hardly 30, the Jews attempted crucifixion. Thus, by the time of Islam, it was seen by the mankind that, except for a few occasions when the believers had adopted a strategy of offensive defense, that is jihad, in the way of Allah, the disbelievers persecuted them right through the centuries, time and again, annihilating the believers totally and repeatedly. The believers weren't even permitted to retain their faith, their culture, and even their religious books. Scriptures were considered an effrontery and tossed by the disbelievers. By the way, strange enough that in the 21st century too, Quran is taken by the disbelievers as a threat to their cultural existence, their secular civilization. It isn't strange that the pacifism of Prophet Jesus, Isa, has never been followed by his followers. In fact, Christians have waged the most horrible, intense, blood curdling wars and are responsible for greater bloodshed, destruction than any other people in the 2000 years. Judging by the two world wars, 1.5 million people died in the two world wars. 1.5 million people died in the two world wars and the use of a nuclear weapon on a civilian population. The first 13 years of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his 70 odd companions at Mecca were almost a typecast of the life of Prophet Jesus, Isa as pacifists. Then the Muslims, like Prophet Musa, Moses, and the Israelites, reached a safe sanctuary, Medina. But thereafter, that is the Hijrah, marked the scintillating revolution, whereas the followers of Prophet Musa, Moses, refused to obey Allah and His Prophet. The followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam obeyed, and fighting in the way of Allah gave Islam such a boost, momentum, that not only has it survived 1500 years, the Quran and its teachings, the Sunnah, are still safe in the original shape. The Quran and the teachings of Sunnah are still safe in the original shape. Thus, monotheism and belief in Yawmuddin, the day of acquittal, that's the verse we are covering today. The day of equatorial hereafter forms the greatest divide in the mankind. It will persist till the doomsday, and thereafter too, between heaven and hell, and thereafter too, between heaven and hell. Now, Surah An-Nisa, verse 144. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tattakhizul kafirina awliya min dunil mu'minin. Aturiduna taj'alu lillahi alaykum sultanan mubina. Surah An-Nisa, verse 144. Translation. O believers, don't take the disbelievers as your protecting friends against the interest of the faithful believers. Do you want to earn the blatant vengeance of Allah by taking the disbelievers as friends? 11 Surah Hud, 11 Surah, verse 113. وَلَا تَرْكُنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارُ وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِنْ أَوْلِيَاءَ ثُمَّ لَا تُنصَرُونَ. Translation. And don't ever get inclined towards those who are unjust, the disbelievers, agnostics, lest you be taken by the fire of hell, and you have absolutely none to protect against the wrath of Allah. You will not find assistance, refuge anywhere in both the words. That was verse 113 of Surah Hud. With regard to Yawm al-Din, Day of Equator, Surah 7 Al-Araf, verse 8 and 9. وَالْوَزْنَ يَوْمَ ذِلِ الْحَقَّ فَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ وَمَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ خَسِرُوا أَنفُسَهُم بِمَا كَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَظْلِمُونَ. Translation. And on that day the scale of justice shall be established. Then those whose scales of good deeds are heavy, so those are the ones who will attain felicity, and those whose measures are light are the ones who have ruined themselves for the reason that they had done injustice to our revelations. For that, the reason that they had done injustice to our revelations. Surah 32, As-Sajdah, verse 10. وَقَالُوا أَإِذَا زُلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. Translation. And they say, when we are dead and gone into the earth, will we be recreated right from the beginning, anew? Explanation. The process of creation of man has been repeated 60 billion times. That is, about 60 billion people have come into existence so far. Sperms are the evisceration of the male and the female, the extracts of all they consume from the land. So is the process of the metabolism based and dependent on things that one eats or drinks. Nothing falls from the heavens, all from the earth. So will man be eviscerated, gutted, and metabolized from the earth again. So will man be eviscerated, gutted, and metabolized from the earth again. As regards the soul, it's the Amr, order of Allah, injected into the embryo, then pulled out at the time of death, held back with Allah till it is reinserted, till it is reinserted as his order again on the doomsday, Yawm al-Din. the day of acquittal. Is there any logic, sensible argument in the world to prove that whereas man can reproduce, remanufacture what he has made produce once, but Allah cannot? Is there any logic, sensible argument in the world to prove that whereas man can reproduce, remanufacture what he has made produce once, but Allah cannot? That's the end of the session today. Please pray for me. Shall meet inshallah tomorrow, Allah be willing. Till then, please pray for me. Ex Brigadier Mustan Sarbella.